Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description.
Channel presented by DraftKings right now. Get in our DraftKings game. Use the promo code HAM when you sign up for your shot at $1 million.
Do it.
Also, American-Giant.com/ham. 15%
15% off.
Link down there. Okay, Adam Schefter, John, on a radio show said this about the 49ers. It'll be Mac Jones. I believe that in the end, they will pick Mac Jones at 3. That'll be the pick. And they will keep Jimmy Garoppolo this year. In that quote, we have the collision of two narratives, which is Mac Jones is the most pro-ready, and the Niners would keep Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, that you want to take it to the next level. You think you'd be mad on draft night. How about when week 1 rolls out and Mac Jones holding the clipboard for Jimmy G?
To me, it's a little bit like, hey, James Wiseman, we're going to live with his growing pains. He's 19. We're going to deal with it. And then you start losing and you yank him. You're like, well, he's only 19. He's not quite ready to win. It's like, well, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. If you draft Mac Jones, like I would get it with Trey Lance, 1-year starter, small school, the Jimmy thing, even though I would get rid of him and start the guy's clock. Under no circumstances, if you do draft Mac Jones, from my perspective, do not just play him immediately. Like he is the most plug and play ready, especially for Kyle's system, in theory, of this group. I wouldn't even say that. Like you can't convince me Justin Fields wouldn't be better. But you're going to draft Mac Jones, trade all these picks, and then sit him behind Jimmy fucking Garoppolo? I'm sorry, guy. You'd lose me at that. And listen, I don't believe that will be the case. If they draft Mac Jones, which I guess we're just going to keep saying for the next 3 weeks, draft cannot get here soon enough. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yes, it can. I'm looking forward to the next 3 weeks.
I feel very confident that Jimmy Garoppolo will be traded. But if I wanted to take the other stance, Mac Jones has been in a position before with Tua Tagovailoa where he did back up, where he was in position when the guy's hip got yanked out of its socket. He came in and actually played well, right? I mean, he did kind of put himself on the map and get the momentum going. Like, okay, they might have something with Mac Jones.
Yeah, he handled it great. Absolutely, was ready to play. I mean, you said the bowl game, right? Michigan.
Well, yeah, but it was like, remember he played the Iron Bowl.
Right.
Yeah.
In retrospect, they probably should have got more consideration than they got as being one of the best teams in the country. I think we just assumed Mac Jones. They can't be as good as they were, but
they were better.
They were better. It would be one of you talked about the most arrogant pick you've ever seen. I think it'd be one of the hardest. I guess you don't ultimately have to sell it to anybody. Like all you have to do is win football games. But it would be one of the hardest sells on a draft pick to double it down with not trading Jimmy. So we're dealing with a lot of things right now. We're dealing with everybody saying Mac. And we're also dealing with this Jimmy thing that has been repeated many times and reported by credible people like Schefter, who's been on this podcast, that they're dedicated to keeping him. You and I do not believe that because for a variety of reasons, one of which I don't think I've stated this way, I'd have a hard time seeing what is Kyle like. Kyle gets to get somebody in and then use them. I'd have a hard time. There's nothing with Debo. There's nothing with Brandon Ayuk. There's nothing that says Kyle's trying to bring people along slowly. I think Kyle absolutely knows how to coach with training wheels on a guy. And I don't know that Mac Jones would need him. I think any quarterback probably needs him to some degree. If you're a rookie in the NFL, it's hard. And most guys don't look like Justin Herbert, even if they turn into Josh Allen. Josh Allen didn't look like Josh Allen year 1. But I think one of the things we like about Kyle as a play caller, he does a good job of figuring out what people are ready for, what they're good at, and let's at least do that stuff. It would seem crazy to do it this way.
To me, the pushback on Mac Jones is the 2 examples you brought up. It's like Josh Allen, I would say most people in Buffalo would tell you, guys, we don't even think he sniffed his upside. If you were around Justin Herbert, you'd be like, wait till you see year 2. It's like the sky is the ceiling is the roof, as Michael Jordan would say. What you see in Mac Jones, now he might get more comfortable in the offense, but it ain't fucking changing. What you see day 1, like those are his physical skill sets. They are not improving.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying Herbert is not normal.
100%. My point is the problem with Mac is going to be like what you see. That's kind of what's going to be. Now you get more comfortable in the offense, whatever, but like the skills, Kirk Cousins' ability has never changed. he's surrounded by better players in Minnesota or whatever now, and he threw more touchdowns. But like his limitations are always his clear limitations. He can never get out of a play when it breaks down. Like that, when we see Mac Jones, a play screw up, we're like, well, he's always going to get sacked in that scenario. That's the, and here's back to the arrogant, the trade. We were around and had a radio show when the Harbaugh thing happened, and he was, they mutually departed. Not a soul believed it. And it really, the hatred toward Jed hit an all-time high for like a 3-year span. And then Kyle came, and it just kind of normalized. But it was 2 or 3 years of like, we hate Jed. Jed is the reason this team sucks. There would be an element of this move with Kyle and the Jimmy scenario and Mac Jones being there, all the picks that they leveraged. I don't think I can overstate the venom that would be out there. And not like, I was watching CNBC this morning. I think it's so stupid when these CEOs like release statements and they go like, our consumer now thinks that silence is believing, or, it's like we see a couple tweets and we know the passion of it's like, you guys have no clue what you're talking about. I do think universally there would be agreement like, this is insane. Yeah. I think universally it would be like, I guess my point is like when corporate America changes on things, it's like they're just kind of guessing. They don't actually have any clue what their consumer thinks. If you're basing off like 3 tweets, and I wouldn't base the reaction off the negative Twitter on draft night. I just think universally people would be like, is Kyle insane?
Right. People who aren't on Twitter, people who just work in the league would think he's crazy.
I even mean or just random season ticket holders,
fans,
whoever.
But again, you know what I always say about like, okay, then the season starts and then you get to prove everybody wrong. It's more about whether you are wrong or not than it is about how people react to the decision that you made.
But in this scenario, we're talking about, Mac would just be on the sideline with a clipboard.
Well, yeah. So like the thing that it doesn't solve is when he gets compared, like when people talk about Mac Jones, well, he's got too much great talent around him. How can you evaluate him? Well, but look, no one punished Joe Burrow for it. But you knew watching Burrow and watching Jones, like Joe Burrow made plays outside of the offense, right? That Mac Jones just didn't make. Yes, he was throwing to wide open guys, just like Joe Burrow was playing with 2 or 3 number 1 receivers. But Burrow just made some plays that Mac didn't make. This is where if you watched the Niners this year and Mac Jones was holding a clipboard for Jimmy Garoppolo, let's say Jimmy Garoppolo was healthy enough to keep Mac Jones off the field. You'd go, wait a second. So the backup just does the same stuff Jimmy does? Why don't you just keep Jimmy then? Right? If Jimmy's not healthy, then okay, we need somebody to do what Jimmy does, but he does it more consistently and better than Jimmy. Okay, I guess I could kind of see that logic if we wanted to go down that road. But if he's holding a clipboard, it means he's not better than Jimmy right now, which I get. It's hard for a rookie to be better right now than the guy in front of him who's been in the league. But eventually, because most guys aren't Herbert. But eventually we'd see him at some point and go, okay, we determined that Garoppolo, just the ceiling wasn't high enough. I think it is more than an injury thing with Jimmy. That's the other part of this. Like, Jimmy's injuries are why we're here. But I do think we could have been here anyway if Jimmy had just played a healthy 16 games.
Clearly, he has some flaws in his game that Kyle thinks are hard to overcome and will just be something in his repertoire till he finishes playing football.
Yes.
Like his decision making, some things he can't see. When I mean can't see, I mean he has eyes. I just mean things he just doesn't see. 8 years into his NFL career, he ain't going to see 12 years into his NFL career.
And if Kyle was here, he might say, well, you know what? No, Mac Jones is a faster processor than Jimmy. And I guess we'd have to find out. But you would – yeah.
Sorry, finish.
But it would – part of what would feel kind of damning is like this guy does the same stuff as the guy in front of him who we determined wasn't good enough.
I even think
different.
I think even if Jimmy's traded and this guy gets to start from – what are the chances Jimmy Garoppolo's year when he played – made the Super Bowl and he played all the games – it was a pretty solid year. And he was probably like, somewhere between, on a given week, 14 to 8, right? He had some weeks where he's probably the 8th, 9th, 6th, 7th best quarterback, and a lot of weeks where he's like 14, 15. That's got Mac Jones written all over it. Like, that's what you mortgage your future for, basically just a little taller Jimmy Garoppolo? Now, maybe, like you said, he's a little bit better. Like, that's kind of what you're getting. Like, Derek Carr has way more tools than Mac Jones. Now, if Kyle's whole thing is like, he's a better processor than every guy you're bringing up, well, that is a pretty intangible thing, which you don't even truly know till you get your hands on him, right?
And there were some people who would argue that the evidence doesn't support that. I don't know if you saw the PFF thing the other day about completion percentage on like past their first read.
Yeah.
I think Fields was 1, Lance was 2, Wilson was 3, something like that. Then Lawrence. And then
you're saying Mac was. Yeah.
Well, part of it was Mac never that he doesn't ever have to get past the first read.
Well, wouldn't you say a huge part of this pick would be based on stuff that they can't quantify? His intangibles, how smart he is, how he's going to be able to handle the playbook. Because it's not his arms average, his speed's below average relative to he's just in 1990 he'd be fine, but in 2020, I mean, you got fucking Fields running a 4.41. I didn't see Lance's time, but Lance is fast, right? Zach Wilson is an athlete. Like Mac Jones is the least athletic of the bunch by a wide margin of the 5, right?
Yeah.
It's Fields would be 1, Lawrence probably 2, Zach Wilson or Trey Lance 3, Zach Wilson 4, and then a gap, and then Mac. So everything Kyle would have said, it was like he was just saying it because he knew that's what he was supposed to say. He actually didn't believe it. That to me would be the telling part. Like he just said it, he didn't believe it because he didn't take the biggest, fastest, strongest. He didn't by any means.
No, but he also said best. And so his counterpoint would be, again, you guys are assuming these other guys are going to be better than him. I don't think these other guys are going to be better than him. I think he might be limited, but I also think these other guys aren't going to be as good as him.
Well, then my take would be, what the fuck's the rush? Why'd you trade up for a guy that has limitations?
It's a legitimate take.
It'd be an all-time potential overspend. Be like, I'm going to buy this $8 million mansion. I only make $300K right now, but I'm pretty sure in the next couple of years I'll be making 7 figures. And then like a couple years later, you're like, I'm actually only making $95K now. And you're just screwed. That to me, that Kyle is projecting, given what he's paid. I mean, guy could be an all-time like, I'm bankrupt.
Well, rarely,
this situation can bankrupt you in the equivalent in football.
Yeah, rarely does it happen where you have a starting quarterback, like a true starting quarterback on your team, that the way you think about him 3 or 4 years later is still affected by where you drafted him. Like if you've got a starter in the end, he probably was worth a first-round pick, right? If like 4 years later he's your starting quarterback and he's been your starting quarterback for 4 years,
I always forget where Mahomes. I'm like, was he 10 or 12? Which one was Watson? It doesn't even matter. You're just like, God, it was worth every penny, right?
Yeah, and look, if the Vikings once upon a time had drafted Kirk Cousins in the first round and he was still their quarterback, we'd go, yeah, not really what you want out of it, but totally nailed the pick. Yeah. Mac Jones, if in 4 years he's your starting quarterback and he's not a top 10 quarterback, okay, I don't think he needs to be top 5. I think just if he's a top 10 quarterback, people aren't replacing top 10 quarterbacks. So if he's a top 10 quarterback, you're not replacing him. Okay? I know it takes some vision to see him in the top 10. I'm just saying, unless he's that.
I think you trade 3 first-round picks for a guy that might be a top 10 quarterback. That's pretty low bar.
Listen, I'm just saying the way we talk about guys 4 years after they were drafted is never where they were drafted dependent if they're good, unless they were late-round picks.
Yeah.
So if he's a top 10 pick, then it won't be a top 10 quarterback in Sando's tiers. He's tier 2. If he's tier 2, no one would say it. But it's rare that a guy could be your 4-year starter and he's like 17 and we're talking about where you drafted him, which is the position they would put themselves in if he is a solid starter but not a star because of what they gave up for him. And there aren't many people in that. But when we think about the quarterbacks in the league, you don't really put guys – like Jared Goff, they were going to move off Jared Goff whether he was a first-round pick or not.
Yeah. I mean, they'd already paid him, too. They didn't even care. He was just terrible.
It doesn't – by and large, it doesn't really matter 4 years later.
I'm going to end this conversation on this. Who are the Rams in Seattle rooting for the Niners to take?
Yeah, Mac Jones.
1,000,000%. Because if I was John Schneider, if I was Sean McVay, if I was Pete Carroll, if I was Les Snead, I'd be praying to God this is true. Praying to the heavens.
Here's the other thing about this.
Is that not pretty telling?
It's very telling. It's just
because I don't even think if you polled every GM in the league, who do you think the Niners division is rooting for them to take? They would all have the same answer. That to me, like universal stuff that we don't even have to hesitate to think about. It's like, whoa.
For sure.
So to me, that's where the arrogance gets put in. Kyle, you're not smarter than everyone else. That's not how this works. And this would be one of those moves where you basically told the entire NFL, I'm smarter than you. And I just,
yep.
I'm a Kyle fan, bro. I really am. But that one would rattle me.
Same. But I do think we have to be careful just because that's what everyone else would say.
Every single person in the league.
Yeah, that's what everyone else would say. Doesn't mean it would definitely turn out incorrect. It just means all the pressure would be on him to do what no one else thinks he could do.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that we have to identify there is a difference between it actually not failing and what everyone thinks when you do it. That's all.
Yeah.
But they'd be for it. Yeah. They'd be for it. Here's what. Sorry, I know you said last thing. Last thing on this. Now where it is, Joe Douglas basically said we're taking Zach Wilson. He said Steve Young is pretty tight in at BYU, and BYU said Zach Wilson's going to the Jets. There's no reason for smoke screens now. So let's see what the next 3 weeks look like.
As someone in the league, I texted him, is Zach Wilson 100% a lock? Their response was, does a fat baby fart? It's one of those football sayings. I was like, I've never heard that, but I kind of like it.
What's with everybody on TikTok and Instagram now putting microphones up to their dogs' butts so they can fart into the microphone? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's just one of those things on TikTok. People just, yeah. Is that real farting or fake farting?
I don't know.
That's a great question.